Welcome to Head Change, the podcast that puts you in a better headspace. I'm your host, Levi Strom. Transcripts of today's episode are brought to you thanks to a generous donation by Jeannie Nassaro at Bee Haven Hill Farms. Thank you, Jeannie. On this week's episode, I speak with Mara Gordon, founder of Aunt Zelda's, about a data-driven global medical cannabis industry. How's that? Hey, what's up?
Been so long.
It has been a while. Yeah, how you been?
Thank God life's good. You know, it's still a little hotter here than I like, but I had to move houses. You're recording now, but I assume this is going to be edited out.
Yeah. This is not live. Yeah.
Okay. So I had to move houses because of the hurricane.
Right.
So that was stressful.
I bet. Yeah. I've never been through a hurricane. Have you? Was this your first hurricane?
First hurricane.
Wow.
Hopefully my last hurricane.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, definitely not something to go through. I mean, I'm trying to get settled here better. Okay, what was really stressful was the of course it was at night. You know, it was bad during the day, but it got worse at night. And then about 11:15, something like that, all of a sudden it was just regular rain, a little bit of wind, because we were in the eye of the hurricane.
Right.
And then about 2:15 in the morning, it started up again, you know, over 100 miles an hour, and such stress. And you hear all this thing going on outside, but you can't go outside and look.
Right.
You know,
scary. Yeah, it's like a horror film.
It was pretty scary. I mean, it could have been so much worse. I mean, it was a hurricane level 2, I don't know, level, grade, whatever they call it. And I mean, they have ones that are 4. I can't even imagine. I mean, My husband went outside because we had these humongous iron gates, and they're solid. So there was no airflow through them. They're solid. And one of them just like took off, and it was very loud and banging. Plus it made it very dangerous, you know. So I made him
that's like a weapon with like probably the spikes on top, you know?
Right, exactly. So I made him go out there to try to close it, and he was like barely able to even walk. I mean, it was like hunched over like in a ball to try to even get there to pull it back. I mean, it was just, yeah.
Wow. So you've been through a lot. If the pandemic wasn't enough, let's throw in some natural disasters. And
exactly.
Knock on wood, but I always think, like, I mean, we all know an earthquake is going to hit Southern California, you know, at some point.
Right.
It's long overdue. Oh God, don't even want to think about it. Let's talk about cannabinoids.
Sure. I love your shirt.
Oh, thank you. I put this on just for you. Well, I got this at a thrift store in Palm Desert, but it's a authentic, you know, Aloha shirt.
But isn't that cannabis all over it?
Well, that's why I got it, but no, I think it's like
bamboo or something.
Bamboo, yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna check the tag. You know, it's probably like Eddie Bauer or something stupid.
Yeah, there's a plant that grows here wild that, I mean, every time I see it, I'm like, what? And then because it looks just like a cannabis leaf. Obviously, there's colas or anything.
Yeah.
It looks so much like a cannabis plant, but it's not.
I think I know the one you're talking about. Like the leaves are kind of. I feel like I've seen it recently, like on Instagram. Somebody was like tricking people, being like, "This is actually
yeah, exactly. Yeah, next time I see it, I'll take a picture and send it to you.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So anyway, it's been pretty crazy times, and we've been wanting to do this podcast for a while.
Yeah. So what was your impetus to do a podcast?
I mean, I wanted to explore some of these topics myself. You know, I'm curious. I think number one, just want to kind of be a journalist and try to put some good information out there too, from good sources on important topics. You know, like Delta 8 and THCO acetate, and you know, that stuff's like going off like wildfire. So I've been trying to touch that. And I just do kind of general, basic kind of cannabis 101, terpene 101 stuff for people. And I'm just trying to kind of build, a catalog that after a year or two, I can look back and go, hey, I got a nice kind of foundation of material on, cannabinoids and terpenes and all these interviews with various people. And kind of, it's almost like I'm kind of looking at, and obviously I'm kind of just starting with like, my network, and I'm going to try to build from that. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. You're helping me realize my dream here. But I just want to build on it, and it's really, I think, very industry focused right now. Like I had some of my friends that are not in the cannabis space like listen to it, and they're like, dude, it's like this is very much for people in your industry, and it's kind of what it's for, but it's also for people that are curious about cannabis and want to know what's going on here in California and nationally, and what in industry, insiders like us are talking about, and just kind of documenting our conversations and having it be kind of this time capsule of this transition from, medical to recreational, from what we've gone through in California, from Prop 215 to Prop 64 and all of that, and just kind of just hopefully capture some good content that will be meaningful to somebody, or hopefully a group of people. It's super small right now, and I'm not like, trying to promote it to become some huge thing, but I think if I build it over time and it's quality, I'll have something. I want to look back in a year and go, hey, all right, I really, I was a little ambitious trying to do one a week. That's too, it's everyone's schedules, and you're not the only one. I mean, everyone, lots going on for people. So if I can get one or two a month, that'd be great, and get quality interviews on good topics. So yeah, this is just really like kind of for me. And I enjoy doing this kind of stuff. I always wanted to go into broadcast journalism. That's what I initially went to college for. So I have, and I was, cool. I like, yeah, I didn't last long because journalism is tough. I took one journalism course and I was like, I'm just gonna do sociology. It's like more, more of my alley. But anyway, yeah, I just think that
one of my degrees is sociology.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. It's very sociology school. I mean, I think it's helped me a lot. There were more interesting people, definitely a lot more pot smokers in the sociology department than in the journalism department.
Probably.
But anyway, yeah, it's cool to have people like you on that, kind of know what you're talking about, because as there's a crazy amount of misinformation and disinformation out there, especially on the internet. And, I'm not, I always try to, like, anytime I have people on it, I don't want to say anybody's an expert, because nobody's really an expert on this plant, and you know that as well as anybody.
Get into the plant.
Yeah. But I think it's important to talk about, and the reason why I wanted to have you on is to talk about Delta 8 and Delta 10 and THC acetate. And just, I wanted your perspective on these cannabinoids. And, I have my opinions on them. And I've had other guests on talk about them. And, I think there's obviously regulatory reasons for this. And it's the federal prohibition that is really driving this type of black market innovation to produce these cannabinoids to try to get people high, or at least tell people they're going to get a Delta 9-like effect from another cannabinoid, or a greater than Delta 9-like effect legally over the counter, so to speak, through the U.S. Farm Bill. So I just think that's fascinating. It kind of scares me too, because it could be the reason why moderates and conservatives say, hey, we can't legalize cannabis federally. And I'm definitely worried about that. And so, and I know you are too. And so I want to talk to you about all that stuff, but we can dive into it whenever you want. I mean, I just wanted to, this is like super informal and casual, headspace. This is a long format podcast. So 40 minutes probably for the meat is good, but whatever flows is great. And I know you and I can probably get into a lot of this stuff. And I've been talking about these cannabinoids already on the podcast. So people do that have been listening do kind of have a foundation of at least what, I've talked about how people are converting CBD isolate into Delta 8 and ultimately into THCO acetate, which is what I've gotten the most attention on from people, and a lot of pushback. People are like really if you start to question, hey, is there safety concerns around this,
Yes.
semi, lab created, cannabinoid. And if you start to even talk about that, there's a lot of people that have a knee jerk reaction to that. So I want to push back against that. That's my role as a journalist, is to give people some real truth and let people sort it out and ignore all the noise. I don't read my YouTube comments anymore because it's a hornet's nest. So
Oh, I stopped reading mine a long time
yeah,
ago. Every once in a while, somebody will have an opinion about something I said or did. And in fact, the other day on Twitter, my Twitter account is my Twitter account. I put on there whatever the heck I want. I've had
right.
it long longer than I had cannabis in my world.
Yeah,
And this guy, I said something about why am I called an expat when Mexicans move to the US, they're called immigrants. I'm an immigrant. What the hell's an expat? That's
right.
just only Americans or expats. No, I'm an immigrant to Mexico.
Mhm.
And he wrote back, he goes, what's the difference? Just shut up and talk about cannabis. And I was like, wow, it's like
LeBron James moment.
well, it
Shut
was
up
the
and
different
dribble.
chicks
Yeah,
all over, it was like shut up and sing like they did
yeah,
when they came out against the Iraq war.
yeah.
I was like, well, in fact, I tweeted back, I was like, normally I would ignore it completely, but I was like, whoa, you must be really an unhappy person that had to bother to even do this and write this to me.
I
But
know. Yeah, there are
anyway,
a lot of I get the two things that I try not to do, or the two things that when I do them that make me the most depressed about humanity, are driving in LA traffic or Southern California traffic in general, and reading YouTube comment threads, and any real social media comment thread just tanks me into a morbid depression, because
oh
the
yeah,
worst type of people come out, the trolls,
these people, it's like the people who are busy and have a life don't have time to be
right,
commenting on YouTube,
right. Yeah.
So
And these
anyway,
days it's kind of, if you open your mouth and say anything, you're inviting criticism. And I say, bring it on, people, bring it on. We're ready for it.
yeah, I wish I could say that, I mean, granted, I've been giving Schedule 1 drugs to newborn babies for a long time, so I have a lot of things to be criticized over,
I think you have pretty thick skin, and we all have our buttons. That's why I stay off of the YouTube threads, because
yeah.
it will, if you get into it with people, it's just not worth it. But there's a lot of
Yeah, I think
confusion out there.
my TED Talk has over, I don't even know, last time, I haven't looked in a long time, but I know it has over 400,000 views.
Yeah, yeah,
So you can imagine there's a lot of comments.
yeah, yeah,
And I made the mistake at the beginning of reading them and even trying to answer some of them. And then I was like, wait a minute, no, they're using this as their opportunity to be relevant.
hmm
And telling me to shut up and telling me that I'm just some old, trying to get rich and all. It's like, oh my God, you guys, people, you really need to get a life. And I just, I send them blessings and like, I hope that at some point in your life has enough meaning that you don't have to do this.
yeah, right.
But
Well, that's when it's
okay.
working, though, is when if you're getting enough attention to have people write something, even if it's negative about you,
Right.
it's
Yeah, I think it was
a
Mary
good thing.
Pickford. It was somebody a long time ago that said, if you're not pissing anyone off, obviously I'm ad-libbing, but if you're not pissing anyone off, you don't stand for anything.
Right.
So, I've always stood for something, that's for sure, because I've always
You
been
certainly have. Yes.
pissing people off.
You've
Yeah.
been, you've been a strong activist for the plant, and, kind of a guiding voice, I think, for the industry, especially early on. Not that you're not anymore, but I think, early on, your voice, and I just got to know you this year through our friend Brian, who I've had on the show. Um, and I didn't know anything. I hadn't watched your Netflix movie. I hadn't seen your TED talk. I didn't know anything. And I prefer not to know everyone's background, just meet people where they're
Right.
at, and to talk about what we love, which is this plant and how it can heal people, and how
Mhm.
it's, I think, healed and restored and helped us through life, and I know you deal with a lot of, chronic pain, and I'm I'm a little bit behind you, but it's catching up, and I feel that I've been rough on my body, with surfing and sports and, broken necks and spinal surgeries. And I know you know all about that. And cannabis has been my saving grace. It's really been such a wonderful, non-toxic, therapeutic product that's kept me off of opiates and synthetic painkillers. I don't take any of that stuff ever.
It's wonderful.
I don't have to, and I understand some people need to, but I think it can really help people. My father, I don't tell many people this, but my dad, was basically addicted to painkillers and alcohol. And I think that's really what led to his demise. And so, I think the opioid crisis kind of came too late. The awareness of that came too late for him. But I hope that, we can help save other people. And I think had cannabis been around, I know that he was always trying to get it, but you'd have to I remember now looking back, I was like, oh, my dad was buying pot when he was meeting that Native American dude behind the Circle K and coming back with some tinfoil.
Oh,
And it
wow.
seemed like this scary thing. And then he goes to the pharmacy and picks up, a bunch of, narcotics, and with, in pill form. And so just, I think about that a lot. And I really think that we're doing God's work, not that we're divine or anything, but I think this is God's work,
Yeah. Um, the tragedy of that, and I have it in my own family, my oldest sister, and I mean, she knows I talk about her a lot. She's 68 years old. She's been sober for 4 years.
That's great.
Because when she was 12, she had chronic bronchitis, and they were giving her codeine, soft, and then just kept, and then that became a drug problem, and proceeded through the whole opioid nightmare for her, and alcohol for her whole developing and adult years, until, I mean, she was in her 60s. She was older than me when she got sober, and I'm 62. And the idea of just starting my life now would blow me away.
Right.
My other sister died of cancer. My sister, by the way, that's alive, that's sober, she's finishing up chemotherapy now from breast cancer. Mm-hmm. My other sister that died of cancer, when it came time for us to set up a protocol and everything, she was going to have to reduce her opioids because of the interaction between the cytochrome P450 and the cannabinoids was making the opioids too strong. And she opted to not do the cannabis, to not have to stop the opioids,
right?
Because she was so addicted.
Right.
And I watched her literally drown to death from radiation pneumonitis, from the burning her lungs. They didn't have enough, they couldn't give her enough steroids or enough oxygen to keep going. And I kept like, well, if we give more CBD, we can, increase the anti-inflammatory, yada, yada, yada. But it would have made less opioids. So, would she still be alive? Probably not. Would her quality of life been better? Maybe a little longer. I would say likely.
Yeah. And that's important.
And of course, even myself, from where I was on opioids, I've never, thank God, had the mental obsession. I had the physical addiction, but I never had the mental addiction. Right. As a result, I never took more. I never wanted more. None of that, but still getting off of them. Of course, I was on fentanyl patch and other ones, but getting off of these drugs, it was really one of the most excruciating experiences of my life. The months that it took to get off of one after another, methadone and all these drugs, to get off of them, and the damage that it did, I felt like I had the flu for probably, I think I counted 19 months post getting off methadone. It's gets into all your cells. Now, even with the awareness of that, and even with the ability to get cannabis now instead of opioids and other drugs for other maladies where it's appropriate, that's fantastic. It's still so discriminatory, though, because it's not covered by health insurance. Mm-hmm. So I've had people that have said, I would love to use cannabis, but my insurance company won't pay for it and I don't have the extra money. So that's why I'm on these other drugs.
Sure.
So until we do, something to get it covered by insurance, it's really extremely elitist medicine. And I really feel like, where I've put I've been an R&D person for, 11 plus years now in this space. But I feel like where I have put my focus has all been on making it be a mainstream medicine prescribed by your physician and fulfilled by a quasi pharmacy, not by a bud tender telling you that their favorite pre-roll is, and in having it be legitimized. And then the insurance companies will pick it up, the government will pick it up, it'll be much more beneficial for patients.
And just to be clear, you're saying, and I think rightly so, I agree, that cannabis is an elitist medication because it's so expensive.
100%, especially in the legal market.
Right. And that's because really of the prohibition. I mean, if manufacturers could go direct to consumer, they could sell it, half or less, the price direct to the consumer, but all the regulations drive the price up artificially, really. Because they don't want it to compete with pharmaceuticals. And you're right, the pharmaceutical companies and the government, in my opinion, want to make sure that they can control the physical management, mental management, pain management, anxiety, all the things that drugs are here to help us cope with. And they want to make sure they control that pipeline from beginning to end. And cannabis is a viable competitor. And so they're trying to figure out how to navigate implementing, exactly what you're talking about, which is I think you'll have two industries probably, right? One, a pharmaceutical cannabis industry, and then the cannabis industry that will exist, for people that want to buy flower and pre-rolls and tinctures and other products.
There's I've always described it with my vision being one where you have, think about a traditional pharmacy, where you have like the candy and the junk food and the stuff at the front of the store. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the over-the-counter stuff where you're self-treating, and then behind the counter with the pharmacist.
Yes.
That same thing exists with cannabis. You have your gummy bears, your very, very low dose, fun, flower, whatever. Then you have your OTC for somebody who, very low dose, products. And I know that's just a matter of the higher or low, you take more, but you don't want to have in one package so much that somebody's going to, have potential harm. And then you have the one that's guided by somebody with some medical education. And I don't want cannabis as a pharmaceutical. I want it as a biopharmaceutical, but I don't want there to be a confusion between cannabis use for medical purposes and cannabis use for self-directed. And I consider wellness over to adult use together. I put wellness with that. And the space that I live in is the space where your doctor is guiding you with what you're using and how you're using it. And the feedback loop goes to your physician, and not your Facebook group right. Or whatever nonsense.
The problem, of course, is that doctors and nurses aren't taught about the endocannabinoid system or about cannabis therapeutics in medical school, as far as I know, or it's brushed, but that's changing, right? So that's what needs to change is we need to.
That's part of it. That's part of it. Back, not to do a history lesson here, but back when Prohibition and the Marijuana Tax Act was first passed.
1937. Yep.
1937. They specifically used the word marijuana instead of cannabis because physicians were prescribing cannabis quite a bit. And pharmacists, they had all these compounding pharmacists that were making these tinctures and whatnot. And they never would have agreed to have it become illegal. They would have had quite a bit of been more outspoken about it, but they kind of tricked them with this, marijuana instead of cannabis.
Right.
Which is really, pretty typical. But I'm very hopeful for the future. I think that there's momentum going on around the world. I mean, for example, I gave a lecture the other day to a group of people in West Africa. I'm doing a lecture tomorrow morning in the Ukraine. And I mean, places that you would never even imagine that cannabis would be part of the conversation are coming more on board. And there's a momentum that's there that we're going to have enough, forward motion that at some point the governments are going to have to either catch up or get out of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty much what's happening in the US. The federal government is, going to drag its feet, it seems like, every single step of the way. One step forward, two steps back, it seems like. And it's really the people from, the cannabis space that are pushing it forward. They're demanding it, and it's been a long, long fight. I mean, let's see, the war on drugs was declared in 1972. They kind of really reshaped and scheduled cannabis and hemp as a Schedule 1 controlled narcotic, meaning it has no therapeutic value and a high addiction rate. So, which are both, of course, untrue for cannabis. But then it threw hemp into that as well, which essentially made industrial hemp, like hemp that's grown for rope and fiber, also illegal to cultivate in the United States. That changed in 2018 with the passing of the U.S. Farm Bill. Now, your expertise in extraction is really valuable here, because I do a different process. I do an old school ancient infusion process that just takes the bud, and I'm not extracting. I'm not using ethanol or CO2. I'm infusing. So I infuse too. Everyone should infuse. Infusion is wonderful. But there's like a much more, complex. I love the simplicity of the infusion, and people can do it at home, but there's a much more complex chemistry to extraction, and then taking each of these components and reducing them down to isolates, and then converting these isolates by various means that are honestly over my head. But that's what is happening from my understanding. The U.S. Farm Bill allowed the cultivation of hemp in the U.S. It also allowed the manufacture of hemp-derived cannabinoids like CBD in products, as long as those products and the hemp it came from had less than 0.3% THC, which is how the U.S. government defines cannabis and hemp. Don't ask me why. I just wrote a blog post on it, and I know less about it now than when I started the blog post. So it's very arbitrary.
Yeah, it was a couple of scientists, I believe, in Canada, that initially came up with it, and now they regret it so much because it's based in nothing.
Right, I read that. It seemed like an Iraq War moment or something. They're pulling out some like high school paper, to be like, well, here's somebody somewhere that said this.
Exactly. That's about right. Yeah, but it's based in nothing. Yeah. And so now that you've opened the door to that, that discussion, I have always, and I don't like hyperbole, but I'll say I have always been against CBD manufacturing, processing from hemp. Mm-hmm. I have been against it from day one. I'm just as against it now. And the reason is because it needs to be regulated specifically. Now, the only thing that the regulations are looking at on it is it below the threshold of THC is all they care about. Right. And maybe if it has, residual of some high solvent or something. It is just not the way. And the purpose of the Farm Bill from the good of all would be because industrial hemp has so many amazing benefits. It can do so many things to help our environment, to help, packaging, on and on. The list is endless. But instead, they jumped in this and started genetics and cultivating hemp that would have the highest yields of CBD, and not necessarily the cultivars that are best for industrial processing. Right. So they didn't even stay true to that. Right. The only reason that I see that Delta 8 has become this big deal is because there's such an abundance of the CBD that's come from hemp that has no market because most of it's crap.
Right. And the
And
price has
so,
tanked in the
right,
last year or two.
exactly. So they're looking for, what can I do with this worthless powder that I've created to make some more money? Oh, Delta 8. Yeah, we'll put this poison in there and we'll create this other product and we'll push it out there as a legal high. No, it's not. It's THC. Delta 8 is THC. So it is not legal under the Farm Bill. You take something and you convert it into something else, you can no longer claim that it's this, because now it's this. And that's the case with Delta 8. And the patients that we've been providing medicine for and guidance through our doctors for all these years, they're still buying their CBD through licensed cannabis operators. They're coming to us and saying, we want CBD that we know is full spectrum. I mean, the real definition of full spectrum, and not the marketing term of full spectrum, that really does have the profile of the plant. It hasn't been Frankensteined and then put back together from a bunch of different isolates and fake terpenes.
Right.
So I would like to see that industry just fall on its face personally.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, basically what you're describing is, we've kind of, through legislation, farmers have been forced to kind of create this third type of cannabis that would not exist in nature, which is a high CBD, low THC hemp cultivar.
Right.
That wouldn't, it might exist in nature,
Not really,
but
no.
probably not, right? And if cannabis were legal, no one would be growing hemp of any varietal for cannabinoid extraction. It just wouldn't make sense.
No, they would be going it for industrial,
right.
And they would go into the packaging industry or the biofuel industry, or you name it.
Right.
There's so many different, the building, yeah.
And I do have to say, and this is not just because I'm a hemp manufacturer, but there are really good hemp farmers out there. They're the ones that we're getting our hemp from in Oregon are cannabis farmers that have converted to hemp because Oregon grew too much cannabis and you can't export it. And they're growing it with rigorous standards and lab testing and doing a good job. But I agree with you in principle that the regulations and the legislation is creating these artificial boundaries that shouldn't exist. If we were just able to cultivate and manufacture the best cannabinoid based products that we wanted, we'd be growing, THC and CBD rich cultivars, extracting it out and doing and making whole plant medicine. Instead, we're kind of navigating this weird gray area.
Right.
And it's really frustrating as a manufacturer. And I manufacture, as you know, cannabis products too. And I know you have for years with Aunt Zelda's and we want, of course, CBD isolate has some value. Sure. I could see it coming into play for someone coming down from a psychotic episode, or if they've had too much THC, for example, and they want something to actually bring them down. That's one area where maybe I could see that. But for 99% of issues, you want a whole plant product. And that means having everything that was in the plant. You're pulling out the terpenes, you're not adding them back in. And a lot of people don't know about the nitty-gritty manufacturing details, but people are adding terpenes are found in all plants, including cannabis, not in all plants, but pretty much. And the citrus industry is one of the main producers of botanical terpenes like limonene, and people add them into formulas, especially vape formulas, and it's in the hemp space, that maybe that's fine, and I'm okay for things being pineapple, strawberry flavored if it's safe and if it's natural and if it's been tested and it's regulated, like you're saying. And right now the hemp space is falling in this gray area where what I hear you saying is that there's a consumer safety and really a patient, a confusion issue at play where people that are looking for medicine are going to get duped into thinking that what they're buying over the counter from a vape shop that's labeled, Delta 8 THC tincture or vape pen or whatever, and they heard somewhere that, this is going to be really good for their migraine, headache, or whatever it is. And then it's completely unregulated and the vape pen has some cutting agent or is high in pesticides that's going to trigger a migraine, who knows, because nobody tested it and nobody cares. And
Right.
unfortunately, there's a lot of bad operators, and that's why we need regulation, because you just
Right.
have, in any industry, you're going to have good operators that are going to do the right thing no matter what. And
Right.
you're going to have bad operators that are going to try to twist it and tweak it in any way they can. You're always going to have that, which is why regulation is so important, and why,
Right.
even though California's regulatory space has not been perfect and it's been rolled out, like made the withdrawal from Afghanistan look like a coordinated effort. I mean, it's just been really sloppy, and they didn't take a lot of industry feedback, but I'm still glad it happened. And I'm going to keep fighting within it to make it better, because I think
Right.
people deserve to have this product and this medicine available to them
Right.
that's safe, that's lab tested, that's consistent.
Right. There's a lot of things in the way that regulation was rolled out that I'm very much against, However, the existence of regulation, I'm not. I'm a
Right.
huge proponent of regulation. Um, what I also think, though, is that they, meaning the state government, has seen cannabis as a cash cow.
Yeah.
And what they've ended up doing is they've added all these layers that each one has its own taxation and fees at it. And by doing that, what they've really done is push everybody back over, or the majority back over, into the underground market, because they've made it just too difficult to comply. And we have a bunch of really badly made products now that are being white labeled by a few operators, to where everything on the shelf is the same,
Right.
and all mediocre. I mean, I reached out to somebody the other day because I was looking for some GDP flour.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I need to do, I said, I do ethanol extraction, very old school. I only take things out. I don't put anything in. I remove waxes, I remove chlorophyll, but I don't add anything back into the oil. And he says, oh, I've got plenty of THC distillate for you, and I've got GDP terps.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, what does that have to do with anything that I'm talking about?
Right.
I mean, and the reality is, when you decarboxylate, and I know I'm kind of going down a hole, but when you heat cannabis that's been extracted and you decarboxylate it, in other words, you activate by removing the carboxyl molecule, the acid molecule that's on there, to activated THC or whatever it is. You, at the same time, the terpenes are going to naturally assume other levels based upon how they were processed and the temperature. What I see so often with a lot of these Frankenstein products that are out there, the majority of the products, is they don't add the right level of terpenes back in.
They add too much, right?
Add way too much.
Way too
because
much. Yeah.
You need to look at what the level of terpenes are in the flower,
right.
But then you need to look at what the level of terpenes are in a finished product.
Right.
And they're very, very low. A little bit goes a very long way. And they're, these are the kind of things that people have headaches from, and the cough. And when you look at these vaporizers, if you see a cloud of smoke, that's bad. That's the opposite of vaporization. That's burning. And that's oftentimes the terpenes that are actually creating all that smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. And obviously the Valley syndrome, that, some people say got blown out of proportion, but, I really think there's this rush to just like wrap cannabis up into the standard consumer packaged good, like just add distillate, just add isolate, turn it into bubble gum, mouthwash, dental floss, and there are innovative people in the space doing that stuff and doing it correct and well. And then there's just a lot of that white label culture, and cannabis is it's just a raw material. And I'm sorry, but I feel like this is a sacred space. Capitalism cannot just march in here and completely destroy everything that cannabis has represented. And I think we're going to see kind of the reemergence of that spirit, through the people and the energy in the industry. We've been beaten down over the last few years, but I think we're going to bounce back, because ultimately we are the ones that know how to make these products. We're the ones that know how to sell these products. We're the people that have been doing it. longer than anybody. Reminds me of the Canadian government when they first rolled out their medical marijuana program, however long ago that was. They basically banned cultivation for all the small growers in the country. It was like, no, we're going to do it. We're the experts. We're going to grow cannabis. And as you know, they completely flopped, completely failed, because yeah, maybe growing good cannabis isn't rocket science, but it's also not that easy.
No.
Go out and try to scale up a good tomato garden. I mean, that's all. Farming is difficult, and especially growing a smokable and ingestible, medicinal herb under the right conditions that really maximize its full potential, and you get that high terpene content to really give the medicine the punch it needs, because it's that complete phytochemistry that makes these whole plant products special, right? It's not just taking THC and adding it with limonene and myrcene. Maybe that works. We don't know. Maybe that works for certain things. We don't know.
It doesn't. It doesn't, though. At least I don't think it works.
I'm just trying to be open-minded.
I'm going to back up a little. Yeah, I'm going to back you up a little bit because something you said. One of the reasons that when I first started working with cannabis, I wasn't always the most popular person in the room. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. To know me is to have an opinion about me, but one of the reasons is because people would talk about the sacred plant and the magic of cannabis and all. And I would say, no, it's just chemistry. Mm-hmm. It's just chemistry. And it's miraculous that there is a plant out there that can do so much, right? If you believe, I mean, it's amazing is probably a better word, that there is a plant that contains so many different compounds and so many different variances and can be manipulated in such a way to create various, that can be processed to create so many different things. That is astounding. Right. On the other hand, it's all completely explainable through chemistry.
Sure.
And as a result, it's something that we should be able to do over and over again. It's repeatable. It can be consistent with it. We can have certain varieties that are grown for certain purposes, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, no,
I've watched over the last years. I've watched in the pharmacy. Let's go back to my model of a pharmacy. And I've watched more and more shelf space being taken up by products that are junk. It used to be you would go to a pharmacy and you had all these rows of supplements, of vitamins. Now, half those supplements are coming in gummy bear format. That is not how you take your medicine. Yeah. I don't think medicine has to taste like candy. What is wrong with our culture that medicine has to be candy? Medicine doesn't necessarily taste good. It's not the purpose of it. It's not a social event to take your medicine. It's not part of your daily caloric intake. It just should be your medicine. And I really feel very strongly about that. I mean, THC being extracted on its own, we've had that as a legal pharmaceutical for years. We have Durabinol, not a popular product.
What's that used for?
Marinol, it's for side effects,
right?
It's the side effects of chemotherapy, right. Things like
anti-nausea, right?
Anti-nausea, exactly. Yeah. Antiemetic.
Uh-huh.
So, but it's not very good. Most people don't like it.
Right.
It's still better than other drugs.
It's a synthetic version of THC. It's not a plant. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but once again, a molecule is a molecule.
Sure.
So when you isolate THC down to where it's 100% THC, you're really no different on a molecular level than looking at a synthetic.
Right.
Same. The molecule's a molecule. And I'm not a chemist, but I spent enough time hanging out with them and learning from them.
They're fun people.
They are very fun. Now, as far as the mixture of them, we've published back in 2018. I hate, it's old, but it was still an extremely important paper that we published on the entourage effect, looking at the 3 major subtypes of breast cancers, taking a full plant extract that was one that we had made, ethanol extract of a high THC, but it wasn't a particularly high. It was just a normal, 60% sort of product. And we compared it to the single molecule THC. to see which one did a better job of killing cells, cancer cells. And we did this in petri dishes. We did this in mice. So we went through also in vitro and in vivo studies. We then took, after we got the results, and there was no question that the full plant was like hands down more effective. We then took the top 5 terpenes that were found in the whole plant extract and mixed it in with them in with the single molecule in the same ratios that they were in the medicine to see if they then worked as well as the full plant. And they didn't work any better than the single molecule.
Right.
So it's all psychological, and it's all flavor preferences that people think, at least in that study. At least in that study.
Right.
And
that's one study, but I mean, I'm on team whole plant for sure. I think at the very least, until we have evidence to suggest otherwise, we should absolutely be using the whole plant. I don't see any reason not to. And it does really, at that point, it comes down to flavor and marketing, right? I mean, I get pushback on my tinctures because the whole plant tinctures taste like the whole plant. It's not masked.
It tastes like medicine.
Or with anything in
Right.
an ethanol extract, something that, if you're using a distillate, a refined, something that looks clear, that's had all the terpenes removed, it's probably been color remediated and had probably 15 different solvents thrown at it by the end of the process. You can get a flavorless tasting product, and then you can add your, strawberry cotton candy flavor. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not medicine. There's, I know all our talks I've enjoyed so much over really over the last year or more. And I think it's important to recognize, like, everybody's in different spaces. I've kind of taken I am a believer in the medicine and always will be, but I've also got to be a business person, first right now, which is meaning, like, we just released a gummy, gummies sell, and it's a worm on the hook to bring people into my tinctures and my topicals and the things that I really believe can really change their life. And, and hey, the gummies are nice and they're tasty. And, I enjoy a little sugar every once in a while, but I'm totally with you that if you're prescribing medicine for people, and if you put it into the doctor, patient portal, the products those people are consuming should be medicine, pure and simple. Maybe you add a little bit of natural flavoring or something if it becomes an issue. They do that and over the drugs all the time, but you keep it basically really in harmony with what's best for this condition. And I feel like we're like light years away from that. I feel like anecdotally we have so much good info on what cannabinoids are good for, but the research is so far behind because of the federal restrictions against studying cannabis. Is that still the case? You're probably more current on that than I am. Where are we at in terms of being able to really study this plant?
Well, there's a lot of places in the world where that studies are going on, a lot of studies. I don't think that that's a really viable excuse anymore. I feel like it's been an excuse for a long time. I don't really think it's the most studied plant on the planet. Nothing has ever been studied more than cannabis. The thing of it is how has it been studied? Right. There's a conference in Boston that I spoke at a couple of times. It's the International Cannabinoid-Based Pharmaceutical Conference. And it's all the big pharmaceutical companies. And as they all present on what they're studying. And I just shake my head because they're all looking to distill down to the single molecule and looking for the method of mechanism of action and the pathway to treat X, because that's what they do with pharmaceuticals. Well, that's not the way the endocannabinoid system works. So you're never going to be it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. You're going to fail. So, I want to jump on something you said before, if I may, for a second about, it's fine to have gummies. I'm not against gummies as long as they aren't being treated as medicine.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. And, the whole idea of the CPG, it just irks the crap out of me because I remember I was at Meadowlands a couple of years, right before the year before the pandemic started. And this woman came up to me and she was all excited to tell me about the fact that her company was coming out with a new SKU every month. That was the goal, to have a new SKU every month. And she was going on and on and on, and how, you know, how much work that was and how excited, and, you know, we're going to come out with all these different CPG, different SKUs every month. And then I thought about the world that I live in on the medical side. You need one SKU.
Right.
That's it. I mean, you could have 10, but you need one.
Right.
And that's all you ever need if you do it well, because patients want to buy that same SKU every single time they need a refill.
And what would that one SKU be for you? It'd be like just the extract, like in a syringe, and people can do whatever they want with it.
I'm not, I have more than one, but they're all the same thing.
Right.
They're a high
variations,
THC, high CBD, and extract, higher concentration infusion and lower concentration infusion, just for ease of dosing, ease of taking their medicine, and ease of packaging, save on waste. And that's all you really need. If you have those things, obviously that's not taking into account, you know, the other minor cannabinoids, the other innovations, things like that, but just as a starting point of where cannabis is going to be when it gets to be medicine. It's not going to get to be medicine on the back of Delta 8. Sure. It's not going to get to be medicine on the back of CPG. No. It's going to be THC and CBD. Right. So if you look at those, you just need to have the availability of them, and then have them in different profiles. Right. Maybe one that has more, you know, alpha-pinene in it and limonene in it, and one that has more myrcene and linalool, or, you know, create the profiles by the cultivars and their genetics that you select when you're doing your manufacturing. Right. Having a slight variance in the profile of the medicine from batch to batch is perfectly acceptable, because that's the way plant medicine works. Right. You know, I take curcumin, and it's a natural source of it. Each time I open a new bottle of it, sometimes they're kind of brownish, sometimes they're orange, you know, whatever. I mean, there's an expectation of that. And I think with cannabis, what we have found is when we keep the medicine in its keep the integrity of the plant, we're able to maintain a lower and consistent dose over time, where people don't seem to need to keep increasing the way they do on these single molecule medicines.
Yeah, I know. It's just, but what you're talking about, the whole plant, you know, it just doesn't fit into the global supply chain, you know, paradigm very well. That's all right. We like dogs on this show.
So where we're living, sorry.
Give him some CBD.
Maggie, come, Maggie, no bark. Anyway, so
well, that's okay. I was just teasing. You know, obviously, you know, the capitalist mindset and big pharma mindset just doesn't work well with cannabis. It does, and scientifically, like I'm talking about the like vibe, you know, and you're quick to correct and say, well, hey, this is about science, but it's kind of about both. And I think, you know, the spirit that I'm talking about is the relationship we have to the earth, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I didn't say that there's nothing. I said that there are things about this plant that are just mind-boggling. How you know, it's like if you've ever met anybody that has just so many skills, you can't believe how many things they can do. You're like, I don't know how you do it, but I believe you. You can. You've proved it to me that you can. My husband's one of those people. It's like, how do you know how to do that? Like, at what point in your life did you think it would be interesting to figure that out? Right. But, and the plant is kind of like that.
You trust the plant. Yeah. And so do I.
I trust the science. I trust the chemistry and what I've seen with the plant. I trust that 100%. The fact that it's amazing that it does all these things, that's beside the point, you know, it just is. But, you know, when you have people trying to lead the conversation that all they care about is the bottom line, you're going to lose out on the really important innovation.
Yeah.
I did an interview the other day for something, I don't remember what it was. And they asked me, one of the questions was, what's happening with women in cannabis? And I said, besides going through all the things like women don't attract the same kind of money, women, the men come in and the bro kind of mentality of taking over and we can tell you because you don't know. But women traditionally were the ones that were making the products. They were the ones that were doing the extractions and the infusions or more infusions. They were even a lot of the times the one doing the cultivating, but certainly the ones making the products. And I think that when we kind of push so many women to the side, and I know this is a stereotype, but it's, forgive me, stereotypes exist because there's some truth in them. That when we push the women to the side more, we lost the heart of the purpose. The purpose being making medicines to help sick people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets lost.
Yeah, it became about bottom lines, how many SKUs, how many shelves are you on, push, push, push. And now you see with all these MSOs, there's no innovation going on. They're just seeing how fast they can spread everywhere.
Yeah, it's de-innovation, it's like
yes,
everyone's just kind of copying each other and yeah, the biggest loser unfortunately is the consumer, who just doesn't, even if you walk into a California dispensary now compared to pre regulation, unfortunately it's a very different scene, not for the better.
Yeah, right. Well, now you have to pay for shelf space,
Right.
and it's become a completely different world that I personally am not that interested. So what I've done is, I'm R&D. I've spent all of COVID working on my software platform for physicians, and I'm rolling it out now. I manufacture in South Africa and export to Brazil, and to start in other countries as well. California and the US needs to get its act together, to really be competitive with the rest of the world. I'm in Mexico. I can't wait to see what we can do down here.
Yeah. I think that's really exciting. And I think people will be really surprised. I think Mexico will become a leader in the space, actually, because there's a history of it there. It's natural for, the plant grows well there for starters. And I think the people will embrace it, from across kind of the spectrum there. There'll be some pushback probably from, conservative elements, but I think it'll, with the drug cartels and everything, I think people are just ready to legalize cannabis fully and usher in a new era, in Mexico around drug policy, and the US needs to step in line. I think it'll put a lot of pressure on the US. It'll make us look stupid. I mean, we're
stupider than we already look.
Yeah, and never underestimate the stupidity of the US government when it comes to drug policy. We have never exercised any restraint or, it's when things smell funny, follow the money, right? That's what Snoop Dogg says. And if you want to know what's up with backwards US foreign policy, follow the money. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but it's pretty disgusting.
Well, one of the things about Mexico that I'm going to say that I disagree with you on, and this is based upon not my opinion, but something I heard from a quasi-government official. He said, and he was off record, so I won't identify. He said, Mexico has the opportunity to be enormous for making products and supplying through Mexico. As soon as Mexico starts to export, the cartels are going to come in and stop it, because that's their territory, is the export.
Right.
So I'm not really sure. I mean, is he right? Who knows? Right. But I think that there's a lot to wait and see. I mean, that's going to be the case in a lot of these countries. Like, look at Colombia. Colombia has become like one of the leaders in Latin America, and they come from a cartel origin story.
That's what I think. I don't know enough about modern Mexican politics, but I just feel like sometimes things seem impossible until they happen, and it's just my gut instinct is that people in Mexico have got to be so sick of the way the status quo that something's just going to snap and they'll kind of emerge as a trailblazer. I hope so. I'm rooting for Mexico to kind of be a leader. But Mara, it's great to have you on. I know you're busy. I think your voice is super important in the space, and I just love you being who you are and schooling us kids on on what's correct. And I'd love to have you back on the show anytime to talk about, all these issues are fascinating. I could talk to you all day long, but
well,
you're busy, so I'll let you go.
I want to say goodbye, but I want my dog to stop barking. But anytime, Levi, anytime. I'm very I've loved the opportunity to get to know you over this last year and a half, whatever it's been. And I wish you the best of luck with your new journalism direction on this. I'm available anytime you need me.
All right. Sounds good. Well, I'll make sure and post links to everything you're doing. I'll reach out to you in an email and make sure people can find you, because we talked a lot and we know each other, but I know not everyone listening might not know Mara Gordon and the work you've done in this space, how important you are in this space, and the research that you've been a part of. So I'm going to make sure and link you up really well on the site, on the Head Change site, and have a great rest of your day. Try not to blow away.
I'll work on it. Thank you so much.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye. Thanks for joining me today on Head Change, the podcast that puts you in a better headspace. I've been your host, Levi Strom. Full transcripts of today's episode are available on our blog at www.awakened.shop. If you'd like to listen to more podcasts like this, you can join the conversation on Anchor FM and YouTube. Until next time, peace.